Kind of two concepts I want to share with you. One concept is based on a video I just did actually yesterday, and it should be on my YouTube, my Instagram, and Facebook, and all my social media pages. So you should be able to see that everywhere. And you probably, if you're part of my newsletter, you should be receiving an email within the next like day or so with a link to it, so you can watch that if you choose to. Second thing I'm going to share, assuming we have time and we don't have a lot of questions. Of course, the questions take priority, but assuming we don't have too many questions, the second thing I want to share is I want to talk about goals. And sorry, I'm just adjusting my screens. The reason why I want to talk about goals is because I did I gave a quick question in my newsletter. Pretty much I just asked people, how close are you to achieving your goals for this year? And obviously there are going to be a lot of goals that you can't achieve in a single year, or, we're in July right now, middle of July, we're pretty much at the middle of the month, getting closer towards the end. You're limited in what you can accomplish by the end of the year. I'm not saying you can't accomplish big things. I'm not saying you can't make a massive change, but what I am saying is that you're probably not going to pull off any miracles in the last, 6 or 5 months of the year. Now, with that being said, what I found that was interesting is that most people that responded did not even have a goal. They didn't even have a goal. I'm actually going to start with the goal thing because I think that's super important. And I kind of want to get into that before people kind of pop on and ask questions. And by the way, if you're watching this right now, you're most likely, 100% you are. You're watching this as a recording. So this is kind of why I'm talking about this before people start to hop on. I'm doing this a little bit early as people sort of trickle in. They'll be able to ask questions and I'll jump back and forth and address, depending on where I leave off, I'll get back to what I was talking about. But, I'll take the questions once they come in. But this is kind of a little bit of a bonus for anyone watching the recording. But yeah, it was interesting to see so many people message that they didn't even have a goal for the year. It was actually quite stunning because my thought process was, if you're in my newsletter, you're following the steps that I give you. And I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of the stuff that I teach, especially when it comes to productivity, time management, how to just excel in life and get more things done, it's not complicated. It's not complicated at all. I think a lot of stuff in life isn't super complicated, but this in particular, it's not complicated. It just requires a little bit of effort and a little bit of structure. And of course, you have to know the general steps to get from point A to point B, but I teach you the steps in my newsletter. I do it for free. There's different videos I have. I have a productivity bundle, shameless plug, but I have a productivity bundle. It's free, by the way. And it has like every course, every resource you can possibly think of to make sure that you're getting the insights you need, whether it's creating goals, whether it's structuring your day with a planner, whether it's kind of having a certain mindset, whether it's focusing more, learning how to defeat procrastination, not being overwhelmed. That's a big thing that I've been seeing from a lot of people. People get overwhelmed by a lot of just what happens in life, at your job, with your partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. All of these things, I either have like a free course, and not a paid course either, a free course or some kind of resource or guide, or I've done a video on it, or I've done an article on it that'll help you get through it. And chances are I've shared most of those things, if not all of those things, in my newsletter. So it was stunning to me when people said like, yeah, I don't even have a goal. And it was stunning because that pretty much means that you watch my content and you watch what I put out, you read what I write, and you're not taking action. You're not putting forth the steps necessary to change your life, to get from point A to point B. And it's a personal problem. We can sit there and talk about why you're not doing it. It obviously it'll vary case by case. In general, I feel like I have a general idea of why a lot of people don't strive to achieve their goals. But like I said, that can be addressed in a case by case sense. But yeah, it was interesting. So I do want to talk a little bit about goals kind of before people start to trickle in, because I think it's so valuable. And I'm going to make that the first thing. So like I said, people were replying that they don't have goals. And what I think you should do, this is what I usually, whenever I have clients, this is what I always tell my clients. What is like your vision for your future? And it's funny because the idea of having a vision for your future, it's not a new concept by any means, but a lot of people don't have a vision for themselves. And it's funny because years ago, I was in that exact same boat where I didn't really have a vision for myself. I think I was in college and I was kind of just ghosting through life. That's why I call it ghosting. It's kind of when you just do things, but you don't know why you're doing them. You kind of just let routine dictate your life. And it's not a good routine. It's a routine that was kind of just, you kind of just fell into the routine. I think that, like I said, I think this was in college. I was ghosting. I wasn't really doing much. I think really my sophomore year is kind of when this these thoughts kind of started to manifest. And I think my sophomore year, I was pretty much just like playing video games, hanging out with friends. On Thursdays, we'd go out to drink. Thursdays is because the college I went to, the campus I was on, it was Penn State, but it was a satellite campus. The campus I was on, hopefully you can hear me. Hopefully all that stuff I was saying before wasn't super muffled or anything. But yeah, so the satellite campus I was on had no bars, and I wasn't old enough anyway to go to a bar. So you could just go off campus and go like to an apartment party and drink. I mean, you could try to drink in your apartment too if you lived on campus, your dorm. But some of the RAs were kind of strict. It is what it is. So you could get caught. So most people, what they did is they went off campus and they would drink, they'd party and all that stuff. But Thursdays were the only days you could pull that off. I don't know why people didn't do it on Fridays. From my understanding, a lot of people on Fridays would go to main campus. So there's no real parties to be had. It's kind of weird that no one decided to like throw parties and just stay behind. Throw parties for the rest of us that just don't take trips to main campus every weekend. But yeah, that was, how it went. People would just throw parties on Thursdays. I was part of the people participating in those parties, and I wasn't getting much done. And so my sophomore year was actually pretty fun, but then junior year set in. And my junior year was very depressing. And it was depressing because I took the habits and the routine that I had for my sophomore year and I, just completely kept them into my junior year. And on top of that, my friends, because I moved to a different campus, the campus was far bigger, like exponentially bigger. Everyone was more spread apart. It was harder to keep in contact with people. There were good things about this transition, but there were also a lot of shitty things with this transition. So overall, I kind of got depressed. And then long story short, I would sit there and reflect and try to figure out why I was so depressed. And I would do different exercises to fix my life. And I realized that one of the biggest things was because I was ghosting. I didn't have any goals. I didn't have any vision. I didn't really know what I wanted. I was just doing stuff. I was just being a student because people said, you go to college, you get a degree, and you get a good job. And you hopefully get good money when you get a good job. But I hadn't really sat there and thought too hard about that. I sort of just accepted what people told me. I was just playing video games. You go to class, you do your homework, you study, you got free time. What do? Play video games. What else are you going to do? And nowadays, I know there's more to do. And if you had a vision, you could easily figure out what to do, relatively easily figure out what to do. But at that time, I didn't really know what to do. At the time, my thought process was, I have free time. So use the free time and play video games. It's actually kind of funny. When I was in college, if you've seen any podcasts I've been on, or if you've watched my other videos, I've told the story many, many times, but I got kicked out twice from Penn State. And prior to getting kicked out the first time, I had what was probably the best job ever in life for the most part. I'm sure there are jobs that are a close second if they paid more, or I should say that do pay more, but this was a fantastic job, especially for a college student. And basically what my job is I worked at this place called the Game Zone, or the Break Zone. It was called the Break Zone. And it was like a pool hall, but it was a pool hall, had virtual golf, had TV setups. You can watch the game, sports, whatever, micro TVs they had micro TVs with video games. And so what I would do during all my shifts is I would sit there and just watch the video games. Yo, what's up, man? Appreciate you joining. But yeah, so I would sit there and just play video games during all my shifts. And the reason why I would do that, let me try to can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I was telling a story. Yeah. I was telling a story because I this is recorded, so when I send this to people in the newsletter, I was trying to do like a little bonus prior, just kind of going over some things that people were sharing with me in the newsletter, just kind of some questions that they had. But yeah, so let me see if I can change my screen really fast. But one of the worst things I did is this is me still telling my story. But yeah, one of the worst things I did, I didn't really know what I was planning in college. I didn't really have a good vision and I didn't have any goals. And so I would waste all my time at the break zone just playing video games and not actually studying or doing other work or working on other projects or not thinking long term. So if you're watching this right now, definitely set up some goals and have a vision for yourself. Like think out a few years down the line. Real quick before I get to you, Tyler, what I want to do, just a quick little story for anyone listening or watching this as a recording. One thing, let me mute you for a minute, bud. But yeah, so one thing I recommend people do, this is like an exercise I did years ago, and I found it to be pretty helpful. It's this thing called the funeral test. And I've written about this before, I think in some blog articles, and I might have brought it up in a few different YouTube videos. I don't recall. But pretty much what the funeral test is, and you can do this right now if you want. Imagine just right now, you're at a funeral. You walk into a church, you're at a funeral, there's people crying everywhere, there's a casket in the very front of the church. As you're walking up the aisle to the casket, you hear these people saying all these different things about the person in the casket. You get to the front of the church, you get to the altar, you open the casket, you look inside, and the person inside the casket is you, because this is your funeral. So now the question is, what are all the people around you, around your body, saying? Are they saying positive things about you? Are they saying negative things about you? What would you want them to be saying? And this, the reason why I like this kind of thought experiment is because, and this is actually like scientifically proven, a lot of people don't conceptualize their future selves very well. I think I've read like before in some biology books that at least what the theory is that humans aren't great at thinking past like 5 to 10 year time spans. Most humans on average can only think about maybe next week, maybe next month. But for a lot of humans, it's difficult to think super long term. Like most humans don't really sit there and think about 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. It's not that common. Now, if you're listening to this, you might not be one of those people that don't think long term. You might be, an intelligent person. I'm sure you are an intelligent person if you're listening to this or watching this, because you're trying to grow and you're trying to improve yourself, and that's already above average as far as a personality trait. But most people don't sit there and like think into the future. They don't think about what potential outcomes they could face. And they actually did this. This is kind of a slight tangent. Oops, camera fell. This is like a slight tangent. Years ago, they did this experiment. It was like a financial experiment. And they would ask people about like savings and retirement plans and things like that. And a lot of people wouldn't, for example, enroll in a 401k. And they found that the reason why a lot of people didn't enroll in 401ks or like Roth IRAs or different investment programs or different funds is because they didn't have a good concept of the future. Like the most they could think about was like the next week or the next month. And so people don't sit there and think to themselves when they're like 20 years old, one day I'll be 80. And when I'm 80, I probably won't be as mobile as I am today. When I'm 80, I might not be able to work as much as I can today. When I'm 80, my kids might not be around to take care of me, or I might not have kids, or I might not have a wife or a husband or whatever. People don't really like conceptualize these ideas because most people are kind of just grounded to their present or it's slightly into the future, but not like far into the future. And so what they did eventually is on a lot of these like employment documents, what they used to do is they used to say, like, if you want to opt into a 401k or if you want to opt into this program, you can check this box and you can opt in. And no one was checking the box because no one could think ahead that far. So what they did is they flipped it, and they also found that like people don't like opt into things usually. People are more willing to opt out of things, but not opt in. So what they did is they flipped it and they said, if you want to opt out to a 401k, you can check the box. But if you don't want to opt in, or if you don't want to opt out, don't check the box. And people didn't check the box because they kind of rationally they understand that like having an investment or saving portfolio or whatever is beneficial. But when you ask them to do it proactively, they don't do it because they're not thinking that long-term ahead. Hopefully that makes sense. If you're watching this and that doesn't make sense to you, leave me a comment or shoot me an email, shoot me a DM, and I'll kind of explain that to you. And I'll try to find like the articles about these experiments that they did. I want to say just off the top of my head, I think this experiment was referenced in a book called "I Will Teach You to Be Rich" by Ramit Sethi. I know this is not a financial talk, but if you want to like find a resource that I think talks about it, I think it's talked about in that book, and I think another book that talks about it is "Money Master the Game" by Tony Robbins. "Money Master the Game" by Tony Robbins is really big. It's like 500-page book, and the font super small. So read that book with caution. It's a tome. It's difficult to read because it's just so long. But I think in those two books they reference this thought of not being able to see super far into the future and the financial aspects of it. But this is not a financial video, so that was just kind of like a side tangent. But yeah, the point that I'm making is that you need to train yourself to think further into the future. The funeral test is a good way to kind of start you off on that path. And once you start to think further into the future, you can reverse engineer what you want out of life and what you want to be known for, and then create goals around what you want to be known for. So that is kind of, for now, that's what I want to leave you with. We got someone here in the group chat, so I want to take some questions. If you have some. By the way, for anyone that does join, maybe I'll put it in the chat actually right now. Leave your chat, like in the chat box, leave your question there, and I'll try to like call on you and do like the hand raise feature. I just don't want to get too chaotic with too many people kind of chiming in and trying to talk all at once. Give me 1 second to write this in the group chat, and I'll get to you in just a second, Tyler. Please leave your... All right. All right. Did you have any questions about anything, Tyler? It's not letting me unmute you, so I think you have to unmute yourself if you do have any questions. Or maybe do like the hand raise feature, and that'll let me... Oh, there we go.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, now I can, yeah.
Okay. There's background noise. I'm in the gym.
How's the lifts been going? I know for the past week or two, you've been trying to get more consistent.
Yeah, I haven't missed any days yet.
It's good stuff.
They have a question right away. Unless there was more stuff to go that you wanted for the story, just because
You're breaking in and out, but I think I heard the majority of the sentence. Yeah, I got some other stuff that I was going to go over if you want to listen to that. And then if any questions come up, feel free to do like the hand raise feature or leave it in the chat on the right-hand side. If you're probably using your phone, I don't really know where it'll pop up. But yeah, I think you can still access the hand raise feature, and I'll chime you in if that sounds good.
I did the funeral thing before. I didn't know it was an actual experiment, but I've given that thought before.
Say it again. I feel like I can like barely hear you. It sounds like really far away.
Is it better now?
Yeah, now it is. Yeah.
Okay. I've done the funeral test before without knowing that was an actual test, and given that thought before as to like what people would say versus maybe like what I would want people to say, or like what my funeral would look like.
You said you have done it before?
Yes.
Did you find it helpful?
Yes.
Okay.
kind of lets me know where I'm at and like where I want to go, so I can start piecing things together to get to that point.
Yeah, yeah. I I find it to be helpful. Um, I do think a lot of people don't really like think that far ahead. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, I definitely think it's an exercise a lot of people should do. It was actually I don't know if you were about to say something else. It's kind of I hear like stuff in the background, so I don't know if I'm cutting you off. My bad.
No, you're good.
Oh, I was gonna say I was actually talking to my wife, which I got married recently, and it still feels weird to say that. But I was talking to my wife. What was it? Last weekend or something? Last week or something. And the funeral test actually was one of the things that led me to quit my job at. I used to work at a law firm. For anyone watching that wasn't aware, I used to work at a law firm, and I was making good money, had benefits, had my own office. It was very nice. It was very, I won't say chill, because law firms. I'm going to mute you a little bit, just because I hear like echoes in the background, Tyler. But yeah, I won't say chill because the law firm is like almost inherently a bit stressful because of the nature of the work, of course. But I have my own techniques to manage stress, so I didn't find it that stressful. And overall, it was good. I think I was making like at the time like 60K. My bonus was like 13K ish. It wasn't exactly 13K, but it was like 13 plus change every year. And at the time, it was actually funny. It's weird because I tell the story to people, and people look at me like I'm crazy. And I said at the time, I had deviated from my main goals. So I did the funeral test kind of in college. That motivated me to do things like create College Conqueror and other stuff. And then once I kind of moved to Northern Virginia, I kind of, just because of the nature of moving and you start working and doing just new stuff, your routine changes. Kind of, it's forced upon you. And this is why I say you need to like really be in control of your routines and your habits and your day. This is why I always recommend people use their planner because it keeps you in control of your day. And at the time, I had stopped doing all that stuff. So I started working at this law firm, and pretty much my routine was like, literally, this is my routine. I'd wake up in the morning, I'd go to the gym. I was kind of like half-assing the gym. I wasn't growing, I wasn't gaining weight, like fat, but I wasn't really like, I didn't have a true goal. I wasn't trying to bulk, I was trying to cut. I was maintaining, but it wasn't my goal to maintain. It was just, I was just going through the motions, really. I was just showing up to the gym and lifting, and that was it. Just to say I went to the gym. I'd get to the law firm by like 8:30 ish. I would leave at, I think we would leave at like 4 usually every day, or 5 p.m. I forget the exact time we'd leave, but it was like 4 or 5 p.m. I had an apartment. I had a 1 bedroom apartment all by myself down the street from the law firm. Literally, it was down the street. I could literally walk to work if I wanted to, but by car, it's like 7 minutes. So I'd drive back home, and I would either play video games or go on YouTube. And for the most part, that was it. Or I'd go out and like go to the bars or something, like at night. And on weekends, I would pretty much just like go out to like Baltimore, go out to DC and just like fuck off, do not much of anything productive. I would pretend to do some work, but I wasn't like really like doing mindful work, if that makes sense. I wasn't like actively trying to achieve a goal. And eventually it just got boring, and it got a little bit depressing too, because it was like, what am I even doing? Like, I don't know. There's like no goal. There's no project I need to do. I'm just kind of going out, talking to girls, wasting time. Just it's pointless. And around this time, I redid the funeral test, and I sat there and thought to myself, like, what do I want to be known for? What would be if I died? What would I want people to know Lenny, aka Leviticus Rich, for? What would I want to achieve in my life before I die? And it was around this time that I actually wrote this book called like 27 by 27, because it got me motivated. And then eventually that led me to like quit my job at the law firm. And people were saying like, oh, that's crazy. Why would you do it? My parents were freaking out. And my reasoning was like, I'm too comfortable at the law firm. And if I did this every single year for the rest of my life, would I be in a bad position? No, I would have a stable job. I'd make my, every year or every 2 years, whatever, get my little pay increase to barely keep up with inflation, but it'd be fine. I'd be okay. Maybe eventually have kids, get a wife, live an average life. But I thought to myself, do I want an average life? And I looked at people around me who were living what I would consider an average life. And this is no like shade to them. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with an average life for the record, but it's not the life I wanted. And it was around that time I started a business with a buddy of mine. We did this marketing agency, started to get a little bit of success from it. And me and him kind of talked, and we were just like, you know what? Let's just go all in with it. Because that's what people say. Like all the entrepreneurs that you see on YouTube and all the people you read in books, they always say, like, burn the boats, go all in. In hindsight, that is not good advice. I do not recommend that. For the most part, I'm not saying it can't work, but I wouldn't tell someone to burn the boats and just go all in for the most part. But we did it, and it didn't work very well, but we still did it. But I'd never regretted actually doing it. I think that the lessons I learned from doing that was super impactful. And I think since that point, I haven't found myself being unmotivated and or not having any goals or not having a vision or future for myself. So that's just an example of like the vision. The funeral test, in my opinion, working well. So hopefully the story, if you're thinking about doing this funeral test and you haven't done it, while you're watching this call as a recording or whatever, hopefully this will maybe light a fire under you and get you to do it and actually get you to achieve your goals or at least work toward your goals. But yeah, wanted to share that because the main reason why, sorry, let me just there we go. I'm trying to maximize my screen. But yeah, the main reason why I'm bringing all this up, and like I said at the beginning of this, there's two main things I wanted to share with you. The first one is setting goals. Main reason why I wanted to start with that is because so many people, and I made my message, I think it was last week or so on my newsletter, everyone's like, I don't even have a goal. Like I didn't even really create a goal. It's been like half the year and I see your posts and I see your content and I see your newsletters, I see your emails, but I haven't done much. And then we kind of go back and forth a little bit and they're like, I don't really have a goal. It's like, okay, we'll get a goal. Like that's where you're starting with. You're starting with a goal. I know it sounds like super basic. I know it sounds cliche. I know you've heard many other entrepreneurs or other people on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, whatever, say it, but it's the truth. You need to know where you're going to achieve something. I think if you, I'm a huge fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm thinking about this because you're on the call, Tyler, and I know you're at the gym right now. I'm a huge fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I always in the morning, I shouldn't say always, but every other day or so in the morning, I like to listen to one of his motivational speeches because I usually go to the gym in the morning. So it kind of gets me pumped up to go, keeps me motivated, especially when I don't feel like going or if I'm tired in the morning. And that's like his first rule. That's his very first rule for success is you need to have a vision. That was his vision was to come to America, compete in Mr. Olympia, win Mr. Olympia, become a movie star. His whole thing, if you read his book, Total Recall, was that he wanted to emulate Reg Park. That was his thing. He wanted to emulate Reg Park, and Reg Park was a bodybuilder. Reg Park won Mr. Olympia. I don't know if he won Mr. Olympia. I think he won Mr. Olympia as well. But if not Mr. Olympia, he won one of the other similar muscle bodybuilding competitions. Sorry about that. Bodybuilding competitions. And then he went on to own a gym and he became like an actor, things like that. So Arnold was basing his vision off of Reg Park's outcome based on what he did because he saw that outcome is so appealing. So yeah, you need to have goals. Now, as far as setting goals, because my thing is I like to give people practical stuff that they can take away and actually use. As far as setting goals, if you go in different articles, if you read different books or read different, scientific articles, closest thing you can have to scientific articles for this type of work for productivity type stuff, you'll see them talk about SMART goals, SMART goals. That's an acronym. I think it's fantastic. I think that works well. But I usually tell people there's 3 out of the 5 letters of the acronym. There's 3 letters that I think matter the most. And there are 3 that I think you should focus on. And the 3 that I think you should focus on are the S, the M, and the T. So that stands for specific, measurable, and timely. Those 3 are the ones I think you should focus on the most, making sure that whatever goal you set has those 3 criterias. So specific. I've seen people set goals and they're super vague, super vague. I had a friend years ago and she said to me, she said, I want to run a marathon. And I said, okay, run a marathon, like when? And she was like, oh, I just want to run a marathon this year. That was like her New Year's resolution. I want to run a marathon. And in my mind, I thought to myself, you're not going to achieve this goal. It's too vague. Like, first of all, there's a lot of wrong with that goal. She hadn't worked out in years and she wanted to run a marathon. I'm not saying it couldn't be done, but to go from 0 to 100 is difficult to do. And I think it's the reason why most people, I think, fail their goals or give up. And that's really what failure is just you giving up on the goal. If you are working at the goal, it's not failing, even if you're not making significant progress, in my opinion, at least. But she gave up. And the reason why I think she gave up is because the goal itself, she was going from 0 to 100 and she was being vague. So you got to be clear on the goal. Now, in her situation, I think me personally, if she were like one of my clients and I was just giving my 2 cents or recommendations, I'd probably suggest don't make the goal to run a marathon. By the end of this quarter, simply make the goal to run a mile. So run a mile by the end of this quarter. So it's January 1st. Make the goal to run a mile by March 31st or whatever. It's a better goal because it's more specific. And another part of it is it's measurable. Run a mile. It's specific. You know, like you can measure a mile. Oh, I ran for 2 blocks. That's not a mile. So you didn't achieve your goal. I don't know. Actually, I don't even know like the actual calculation of a mile, but you know the point that I'm making. I live in Virginia. I ran from Centerville to Fairfax. If you pull that off, you probably ran a mile. So congratulations, you've achieved the goal. So S, specific. You need to be specific and measurable. You need to be able to see objectively if you are achieving your goals. Some people want to read more books. I had a friend years ago. He was like, because I used to read a lot of books. I still read a lot of books. I actually bought like 7 books, like the beginning of this month. One of which I've read. The other ones I've been procrastinating on, not because I procrastinate, but because I have other stuff that I've been doing that's more important and more timely. Timely, I'll get into in just a second. But I used to read a lot of books, and my friends say, oh, you read a lot of books. Like, you know, how do you do it? And I told them, don't go from 0 to 100. Don't try to be that guy who tries to read a book a day, like, and you've never read a book in years. Do baby steps, but make it measurable. So by the next quarter, by the end of the quarter, make the goal to read a chapter a week, if that's manageable, a chapter a week. And then if you can do a chapter a week easily, make it harder for yourself. Do a chapter a day. If that's easy for you, make it 5 chapters a day. Does that make sense? Like you keep upping the ante, but don't go from 0 to 100. And also be sure that it's specific and measurable. You got to know like how many reps you're going to do to call this workout complete. Again, I'm making this analogy for like working out because I know Tyler's in this group chat and he's a big dude, strong man. And I think he's at the gym right now. So I thought it'd be fitting. I'm kind of thinking about the gym right now. I kind of want to lift myself. So it's coming to my mind. Third thing, timely. You need a deadline. And I've already kind of explained this when I just kind of gave the other goals by the end of the quarter. This is a timeline. This is a deadline that you have for yourself. If you keep the goal too vague and keep it in la la land, you never actually feel any urgency to get it done. And I see a lot of people do this too. They'll set a goal and they say, I want to write a book. Okay, cool. When do you want to write the book? Well, eventually, by the end of the year. It's too vague. By the end of the year is way too vague. Instead of saying I want to write a book by the end of the year, you could say I want to write a book by December 31st. It's in people's mind, they're going to say that's the same thing. It's not the same thing because by the end of the year makes it sound like it's up in the air when you want to do it. And if you don't do it, you don't feel bad about it. If you set a deadline, I want to write a book by December 31st. By the time December comes around, if that book's not pretty much close to being finished, you're going to feel stress. And this is what you want. You want the stress. This is why you set goals like this, because you want to hold yourself accountable and you want to feel like you want to feel that anxiety of not getting done what you said you were going to do. So again, when you're creating goals, those are the 3 I recommend focusing on. S, specific, M, measurable, T, timely. There's the other letters are actionable and relevant. Those are good too, but I think those are built into the S, M, and T. If you set a goal, obviously that's not relevant and you can't do, then you know it's redundant anyway. You can't even set the goal effectively in the first place. So focus on those 3 letters, and I think you'll be in a better position. Let me see over here. I see you wrote something. I agree with you on the SMT and SMART goals. We used to use those at the gym, and they're a great place to start for anything. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got to have the goals. Same with fitness, by the way. Same with fitness. I see a lot of people, they try to set fitness goals, and they don't set like an actual goal. People, this is one of the goals I see all the time. How do I get in shape? Actually, I had a debate with a friend of mine not too long ago, and he was like, "Well, I'm just trying to get in shape." And I was like, "What does in shape mean?" And he's like, "I just want to get in good shape." I was like, "Okay, well, that means different things for different people. Like, there are some people that are, say, power lifters, and they might have a gut. In their minds, they're in shape, and I think a lot of people consider them in shape. Their goal is to bench 400 pounds. For them, that's in shape. For them, that's the goal that they want to do. That's what they're trying to strive for. That's fine. Is your goal to bench 400 pounds? Okay, no. What's your goal then? To be in shape? Well, you got to define what in shape means. Is in shape having six-pack abs? Maybe. You could be in shape technically without having six-pack abs. You got to define what it is. Is your goal to be able to do, the Murph, that fitness test that they do? Maybe. That's in shape. I think a lot of people would agree that's in shape, for the most part. Is your goal to run 5 miles and that's it? Not go to the gym, not lift weights, just be able to run? That's fine. But you got to set the actual sort of criteria of the goal. And I think that's what a lot of people miss. They just keep the goals vague, and that's why they never achieve them. So that is my suggestion when it comes to goals. Now, the other thing that I was going to share with you, I made a video about this yesterday. And if you're watching this, by the time you're watching this video, I'm sure it should be out on all my socials, should be out on Instagram. I'm sure it's out on YouTube, and it should be out on Facebook. You'll probably see it in the newsletter if you're part of the newsletter. But there's a rule. So this is a kind of a concept I usually share with my clients. And pretty much what the concept is giving your time value. That's the concept I share with my clients. Now, the other day I made a video yesterday called the 1,000-minute rule. And I didn't come up with this concept, like the 1,000-minute rule. There's a real estate agent named Ryan Serhant. I love the dude. As someone who does real estate myself as a consultant, I love Ryan Serhant. I think he's a complete badass. Went from, I'm not going to say poor because he was never poor, but he went from not a lot of money in New York to being like one of the biggest real estate agents in the world, if not the biggest real estate agent in the world. Does like $1 billion plus in sales every single year. Started his own brokerage to compete with one of the main, with the brokerages you usually see, like Century 21, Long and Foster, Weicker, which is the brokerage I'm part of. He created his own brokerage to compete with all those, and he's killing them right now, which is crazy. And actually, on his way up, when his brokerage, which is called Serhant, started to gain a lot of popularity, Harvard Business Review reached out and they wanted to interview him. And he thought, this is what he says in his podcast at least, he thought they were going to interview him on like the processes for creating a business or the standard operating procedures that he uses to scale his business or how he sells real estate. And they said, no, the thing we find to be the most important is your time management and productivity abilities. How do you manage yourself so that way you can pull off being like a 41-year-old dude or 40-year-old dude and creating this multi-billion-dollar brokerage in the span of 5 years, 4 years, actually, because he started during COVID. He started his new brokerage in COVID. So 4 years. How do you pull it off? And he always shares the 1,000-minute rule as kind of like his secret sauce, like his formula for success. And it's essentially what I teach my clients, valuing your time, but he has like a different way to kind of illustrate that point. So what I plan on doing is just combining the two, because I think the 1,000-minute rule, it's easy to memorize because it has numbers in it. I think people memorize numbers better. It has a catchy name. The 1,000-minute rule sounds special, and it is special, but I think it sticks in people's minds easier. So I'm going to start using that too. Of course, give him credit, but if you see me talking about that more, just know he's the person I got it from. I recommend checking out his content, his social media, everything as well, because he talks a lot about time management and productivity. He's definitely someone worth listening to. But pretty much the concept is throughout the day, you have about 1,000 minutes to take action and get things done. And I want to say this as like a quick side tangent. I've always found it interesting that we as humans, we're different in many ways from one another. Some of us are tall, some of us are short, some of us are strong, big and strong, like Tyler in the chat. Some of us aren't super strong, some of us are weak, some of us are overweight, some of us are skinny. There's a lot of things that differentiate us, but the thing we all have in common is time. We all have the same amount of time, 24 hours. And it's funny when I see people try to compete in every other area where they're less likely to succeed, but they won't compete by just managing and structuring their day more effectively. They won't compete in just handling their time better than their peers. And if you really start to look at like different entrepreneurs, different people and throughout history that were successful, this is the thing they all had in common. And I say this, and I think people sometimes think I'm saying this to like just sell stuff or just to prove a point, and I am proving a point, but it is true. I just recently, I was reading about Benjamin Franklin, and I was kind of reading about George Washington and listened to a podcast about him. Both of them plan their days out every single day, and they cite that as the thing that helped them become successful. They cite that as the thing that helped them get ahead and outcompete everyone else. Alexander the Great scheduled his day. He had Aristotle as his mentor. He scheduled his day. He planned things out. He was a general of an army, which requires massive planning. He planned things out. Warren Buffett, I don't know if he does it now, but at some point he did structure his day. He did plan things out. Ryan Serhant, as I just explained to you, he plans his day out. You see a lot of these billionaires, Jeff Bezos plans his day out. He has a whole, it's not a TED Talk. It's he did an interview. I don't know if it was a Google interview. I forget what it was. It's one of his few interviews that he did. You can just go on YouTube and Google it. It's one of the few interviews he's ever done. He talks about time management. He talks about how he structures his day and different rules that he has in place to make sure that he gets stuff done every single day. All these dudes structure their day. All these dudes have 1,000 minutes for the most part in common, just like you. What you can do that other people don't do is actually use your 1,000 minutes successfully. So that concept to me it's a good concept to keep in mind, the 1,000-minute rule. Now, what I tell people to do, kind of adding my 2 cents on top of that rule, is you need to have a value for your time, because if you value your time a certain way, it helps you make better decisions on how you choose to spend your time. And so there's a formula I kind of share with people. There's 2 numbers you can get from this formula. The simple way to get a value of your time is whatever job you're doing right now, whatever job you have right now. If you're listening to this, if you have a job, apply this rule right here and now. Whatever your hourly income is, that's how much you're worth an hour. Does that make sense? So I tell people, if you work at, for example, McDonald's, you make, I don't know, $10 an hour at McDonald's. I don't know what the minimum wage is now. I think it's like $15. Say you make $15 at McDonald's an hour. That's how much your time is worth. When I worked at the law firm, I was making like $60K-ish per year. My time is worth $30 an hour, let's say. And if you want to know how much your hourly time is worth, if you have like a salary or if you get commissions or whatever, just take your yearly income and divide it by 2,000, and that'll give you your hourly income. The reverse is true too. Like if you work at a wage job, like an hourly job, I should say, and you make like $20 an hour, you can reverse it, multiply it by 2,000, and that's how you get your yearly income in general. So if you make $20 an hour, you make $40,000 a year. That's the general formula behind this. That number that you get, this is if you're not ambitious. This is if you perceive your time to only be as valuable as what your company says it is. Now, I tell people, in reality, your time is worth significantly more than what the company's paying you. But I would say it's worth at least double. It's worth at least double. And because this is how companies work. Companies, a good company, not all companies are good companies, but a good company hires an employee to get productivity out of them and to make money for the company in the form of revenue at a cost that's cheaper than what the person's worth. Does that make sense? So you make at McDonald's $15 an hour. It's because the effort you put in to McDonald's is worth to them, say like $20 an hour. So they get a $5 profit of each hour you work. Does that make sense? So I tell people, you shouldn't think that you're worth what your job thinks you're worth. You're worth more than what you're worth more than the value that your job assigns you. So double it. So you work at McDonald's, you make 15 an hour, you're worth at least $30 an hour. Now, once you get this number, this will help you make better decisions on how you spend your time. And after saying this to you, I really want you to, like, in the real world, apply this to every little decision you make. Like, next time you just do anything, just think to yourself, like, think of it almost like a bank, like a bank account. Like, if you have a app on your phone when you check your bank account, think of it almost like you're withdrawing money from your bank account or you're spending your money at like a store. I'm going to tell you a quick story. And this was like a controversial thing a few years ago. It was funny. It's funny because I told the story and like literally a few months ago, some other rich dude I was watching, he said the exact same thing that I said years ago. So years ago, I was going to Costco. And I was going to Costco because I'd always drive by Costco and it's always like these big lines. And people would always say like, oh man, Costco has like super cheap gas. The gas is super cheap. So I wait in line at Costco. And I was like, well, I don't like spending a lot of money on gas, you know? So of course I'm going to go to Costco and save some money. I pull up to Costco. It took me like 35 fucking minutes to get gas. Like in line, I was waiting for like 35 minutes to get gas. First of all, I went out of my way to go to Costco because Costco is not that close to where I live. So I went on the highway, went all the way to Costco. That was like another 10, 15-minute drive just to get to Costco. Sat there for 35 minutes, then filled up my tank. And I did the math on how much I saved. And I didn't really save anything in the form of just how much money I saved from the gas station I usually go to, which is like some Exxon or whatever that's like $4 a gallon. I don't remember what it was. Versus Costco, I think I saved like $10, $12. Not that much, really. I didn't save that much in the grand scheme of things. And I thought to myself, I actually lost money because if you apply my rule where your time has a value, I was in line for 35 minutes. Let's round up and say it was like an hour, just for simple math. Let's assume my time is worth $50 an hour. I spent $50 waiting to get gas, only to get like a $15 discount. I still lost money. I still lost $35. Is it worth it? Not really. In my opinion, not really. It was inconvenient. I had to go out of my way to get the gas. I had to wait in line. It was boring. I could have been doing other stuff. I could have been making content. I could have been trying to get more clients for my productivity business. I could have been watching TV or just having fun or enjoying my life. Instead, I'm in a car waiting to get gas, trying not to crash into the people around me because everyone's so like anxious to get their gas faster than everyone else that they try to cut the line and people just drive like idiots in situations like that. Could have gotten into a car accident, wasted more money, had to call my insurance. It's more harm than good really done. It's not worth it. And I remember making a video and people were like, yeah, but Costco can be really cheap at times. If you live next to Costco, maybe it is cheap. Maybe it's like super close to you. Fair enough. If it's the best gas station nearby and it's not out of your way, fair enough. It could be cheap. I'm not saying it can't ever be cheap. I'm saying for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people, going out of your way to get a slight discount is not worth your time. You would have been better off using your time wisely by just going to the nearby gas station, getting that gas much faster, and then actually being productive once you got home or once you got to whatever destination you intended on going. I said that like a few months ago. Some other guy had this rich dude online had the exact same experience. He was like, "Yeah, went to gas goes. People said it was cheap, and I was waiting in line for like an hour, and I didn't even save that much money." He's like, "Why do people do this to themselves every day?" I was curious. I asked myself that same question years ago. Why do people do this to themselves? I think they do it because they don't have a value of their time. Now, again, I'm assuming my time is worth like $50 an hour. What if you're like an entrepreneur? What if you make good money and your time's worth $100 an hour? Is it worth $100 to wait in line to get $50 worth of gas when you could have, you spent $50, you could have spent like 60, 75. Is it worth it? That $10, $20 discount? Maybe. I don't know. It's up to you. This is for you to decide, by the way. I personally don't think it is. Recently, too, I did this with groceries. I don't go grocery shopping anymore for the most part. If it's like urgent, I'll go. And if it's like small and fast, I'll go. But for the most part, I don't go grocery shopping. And the reason why I don't go grocery shopping is, again, I applied this rule into my life, like valuing my time. And I say this because a few months ago I went grocery shopping. It took me like 3 hours. It took me so long. And I really like sat there. This is why I tell people to like go through their planner and outline, like journal what you did by the hour. I went to go to like Walmart. It took me like 30 minutes to get there because there's traffic. I got to Walmart. It was crowded. Took me a little bit to like actually shop and grab the items. And I know exactly what I'm going to buy. Some people take longer because they just wander through the aisles and they pick up stuff at random. They don't have a grocery list. I have a grocery list. So I always know exactly what I'm getting. And I eat the exact same thing every single week, basically every day. So I don't have to think about stuff like that. I get my stuff and then I'm waiting in line. You try to go through self-checkout, it's crowded because everyone's trying to do self-checkout. You try to do normal checkout, there's no cashiers because they don't have cashiers anymore. So it still takes long. So the 1 or 2 lines that are open is still long. I think I waited like 15, 20 minutes in line just to like buy my few groceries. I didn't even have that many. I think I had like 12, 15 items. I get it, put it in the bag, go to my car, load it into the car, go back home, going through traffic because in Northern Virginia, there's always traffic, at least on the weekdays. Go through more traffic, come home, unload it into the fridge. This whole process took like 3 hours. And I sat there and thought to myself, if I apply my rule of $50 an hour, that was a $150 trip, not including the cost of groceries itself. That is not worth it. I could have been doing way more things in 3 hours. Now, just as a side note, in my free time, and please do this yourself, like really sit there after you've come up with a goal, think about the things you could be doing to achieve your goal. In my free time, to achieve my goals, I create content, I DM people to try to get more clients, I send emails, I create emails, I set aside usually like an hour to plan my emails throughout the week, and I auto schedule them. Create emails. I brainstorm content ideas, brainstorm YouTube ideas separately. I try to take time to read. I try to take time to do podcasts. I have a wife. At the time, I had a girlfriend. I plan out time to spend with her. There's a lot on the list that I could have been doing that I couldn't do because 3 hours was lost to grocery shopping. And then so I found this app. I forget what it's called. I think it's like Instacart. Super cheap. It's like $9 a month subscription. $9 a month, someone will go shop for you. They'll buy the groceries you want. You can save the list to your phone. They go grocery shopping for me. It costs me the exact same amount. Like you just pay for the items plus a tip. It's like Uber. And usually the recommended tip is like 10%, 15%, 20%. So I just do whatever the default says. If someone's like above and beyond, and they're like super nice, super light, I'll tip more. But I usually do the default amount. If I spend, so usually on average, I spend like $60, $70 on groceries. So I'm spending, let's say $80, $90, for 2 weeks worth of groceries if I use this app. Plus it's $9 a month. So, divide that into 4. Let's just say it's like $3, a week. I've saved money because instead of me spending $150 plus the $70 to buy the groceries. So what's that? $230. Instead of me spending $230 to buy groceries, I've spent $70 buying groceries. And one could even argue I made more money potentially because if I got a new client or if I made content that, got at least someone on my newsletter, that's potential money. That's potential income that I'm generating. Does that make sense? So I bring this up because I just want, if you're watching this, take more time to value what you do throughout the day. Understand how much your time is worth, how much your time should be worth, and really sit there and ask yourself, is what I'm doing really worth it? If my time is worth $50 an hour or $25 an hour, let's say $50 an hour again for easy math. If my time is worth $50 an hour and I get lazy and I watch 4 hours of Netflix, I spent $200 watching Netflix, not including the cost of the subscription. Is it worth it? It's a genuine question. And only you can answer that question, by the way. Is it worth it? Is it worth it to spend $200 to watch Netflix? Is it worth it to spend X amount of money? I've in this video that I did yesterday, I used this example. When I did real estate as a full-time agent, I would go to the office and work because people always say, go to the office and work. That was, that's one of the tips when I became an agent, at least. People said that agents failed if they didn't do. If they don't go to the office, they fail. So I would go to the office. And I wish I had a photo to show you. But in our office, there's private offices that you don't reserve. It's just first come, first serve. So if you get the office when no one's in there, then you can use the office as long as you're there. If you were like me and you were there from like the morning until night, until like 11 p.m., you can be in that office all day. But if you didn't get one of these offices, there were plenty of computers kind of in the main area of the brokerage, if this makes sense. The issue is that all the computers were kind of like side by side, almost like a library. Like if you picture like a library's computers, how they're just like in the general public area side by side. And then in libraries, usually there's like spaces and closed off that you can reserve. Same concept in our brokerage. If I didn't get one of these private rooms, I would usually I would actually go to the brokerage, and if I couldn't get a private room, I would just leave and go somewhere else. And the reason why I would do this is because if I wasn't in the private room, people would start just talking to me. Like I'd be on my computer working, typing. People would see me working, and they'd come up. And I'm not saying this I don't want anyone listening to this think I'm like shitting on these people. I'm not. They're great people. I think they just either just didn't care that I was working or they just weren't paying attention. I'd be like working. And I have a planner, so I know how much I want things to take. And if I go over what I expected to take, I start to get a little bit frustrated. I'm working. They would come over. Hey, Lenny, how's your day going? That's good. That's good. Tom, how's your day going? That's good. So did you see that sports event last night? You see the Eagles play? No, I don't really watch football. But yeah, I didn't really watch it. Yeah, it was a crazy game last night. Did you hear about that thing that happened with Trump or Biden? No, I didn't really. I didn't watch the news last night either. I was kind of just working, just doing stuff. Yeah, so this thing happened. They get into a full conversation about what they want to talk about, and they disregard the fact that you're sitting there working. And me personally, I would consider myself a nice guy. I try to be polite, so I don't sit there and like cut them off. I let the conversation flow, but it is frustrating, and I do try to excuse myself. But for some people, it's difficult to excuse yourself, especially when you're working on something. It's hard to be like, leave. Like I'm here at my computer doing something. Please leave. It's hard to say that politely. So I'd have a long conversation, and before you know it, like 3 or 4 hours pass by, and now I'm behind because I lost 4 hours talking to this guy about what happened with Donald Trump or with Joe Biden or with sports or whatever thing that I wasn't interested in talking about. I lost that time, haven't gotten my work done, and I'm still here. Does that make sense? And in my mind, I think to myself, if you have those like 4 hour conversations that you don't want to have and you don't find productive, consider that giving that guy your money. Like in that situation, when I let people have those conversations and like take time out of my day for 4 hours, that's the equivalent of me just going into my wallet, pulling out $200 and saying, here, take my money. Thanks for this conversation. Take my money for it. This is what I owe you for this conversation. This is what you do, or at least this is what people in general do when they don't evaluate their time. So hopefully this all makes sense and this concept makes sense to you. Hopefully you apply it. Like I said in the beginning of this video, I make videos like this and I have stuff in my newsletter. You could literally follow step by step the stuff I teach you. And I guarantee by the end of the week, by the end of the month, by the end of the year, you will have made significant progress if you just follow the steps that I'm sharing with you. And it's all free. It's all free. It's not complicated. It just requires a little bit of work and consistency. But you could achieve it. But it makes me a little bit sad and a bit upset when I send the newsletter out and people respond and they say, you know what, I haven't even created a goal. I don't even have a goal. It's like I want to achieve a goal. I want to get stuff done. I want to be productive, but I feel like I'm lost and I don't have a goal in the first place. Especially when like I do a free call like this and I don't even see people join the call. It's like, well, you got to do the work. Like no one's going to do the work for you. You got to do the work. And I think a big part of not doing the work comes from people just not really conceptualizing their time well. So I'm going to end it with that. If you want to ask any questions, feel free. It's 7:21 right now. So this was supposed to go on until about 7:30. So I'm going to close out soon. But yeah, if you have any questions at all, feel free to leave them. If not, I'm going to close it out. And again, hopefully everything I said in this video makes sense. Hopefully everything I said you can apply today. I really hope you apply it today. If you don't know what to do, if you don't know where to start, this is what I always recommend my clients. This is what I'm going to recommend to you as well. Step one, get a vision for yourself. Get some goals. Do the funeral test. Consider what you want to be known for. Consider what you want to become. Create goals for yourself that reverse engineer that process. That'll help you get to whatever ideal version of yourself you want to become. Step two, map out your day. Get a planner. Take the biggest goal that'll lead to the biggest contribution to your other goals. Make that the main thing you focus on. Don't go from 0 to 100. Some people try to put like too many goals into their planner. They try to do too much too fast. You can build up to it. Initially, if you're just kind of starting out, just focus on one goal and make that one goal the thing that creates a trickle down effect. What I found is usually the one goal is like money. It's not always money, but for a lot of people, it's money. if you can find a way to make more money, then other goals become a lot easier to achieve. If you want to get in better shape, it's easier to diet. It's easier to afford a good gym. It's easier to have more free time if you have money, if you're living below your means. If you want to invest, you can't invest without money. If you want more free time, it's easier to have free time when you have money. If you want to have a good social circle, it's easier to be spontaneous. It's easier to do more stuff if you have money. If you want to find a girlfriend, or if you're a girl and you want to find a husband, whatever, or boyfriend, wife, whatever you want to find, it's easier to go on dates. It's easier to do fun things. It's easier to buy people gifts when you have money. So if you haven't, I would recommend, if you don't know which of your many goals to start, focus on a money goal. Focus on probably just increasing your income or living below your means. Those would kind of be the two angles I'd recommend. Figure out the step-by-step process to get that goal done. Put it all in your planner by the hour, from the time you wake up, from the time until the time you go to bed. Put it all in the planner by the hour. And then from that point, actually execute on what you put in the planner. I've had clients in the past. This happens all the time. They'll put stuff in the planner, and then we have our follow-up calls. And I say, okay, so what have you done over the past week? Like, show me your planner. Show me what you've actually done. Let's see how much progress you've made. And they'll say, well, I put the stuff in my planner, but then I started talking to my friend on the phone, and I ended up not getting stuff done. Then I got overwhelmed. And then I felt disappointed because I didn't get the first few things done. So then I ended up not getting anything done. And then this entire week just kind of went to shit because I didn't do anything, because it became like a negative feedback loop. It's like, okay, well, no one's going to do the work for you, man. Like, do it. You put it in the calendar, do it. Again, this is why I say, like, start small, because if you have one thing in your planner for, like, if you set aside like 6 hours to do one thing, it's harder to not get that thing done, in my opinion. Because you have so much time to do it. And I understand that stuff comes up at random. I understand emergencies come up that you can't predict. That's totally fine. That's life. But you still need to do the things that lead to your goals. Does that make sense? So once you do that, once you outline your day, actually execute. And then the final thing is just go back and measure your performance. I usually recommend people do this every single quarter. Every single quarter, sit there and say to yourself, did I achieve my goal? Or at least did I come close? Did I make some progress? And real quick, by the way, Jordan Belfort said this. If you're not familiar with Jordan Belfort, he's the Wolf of Wall Street. I know he gets a bad reputation because he did like some pump and dump schemes when he had his own like brokerage. But I do think that he's someone worth listening to. Of course, you can listen to what not to do as far as like the scam stuff that he used to do. And I'm sure he says that himself. But he's also a multimillionaire, and he's also credible, and he's also someone that does have a good business mind, and you can still listen to him on the business concepts and still apply those to your life. Like, don't just, there's a saying, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. You can throw out the bad, but keep the good. Keep the good in this situation. So I know he has a bad reputation, but he says that when you create a goal, you're not creating a goal. There's a good book actually called Way of the Wolf. I don't know if I have it here. I don't have it nearby, but it's a good book called Way of the Wolf. He says, don't try to, in the book, he says, don't try to set a goal to actually hit the goal. You set the goal to force you to come close to setting the goal. Does this make sense? And so basically what this means is, say, for example, you set a goal, say you make like 30K, let's say 50K for simple numbers, 50K, you make 50K. Your goal is to make 150K. If you set a goal to make $150,000 by the end of the year, it's January 1st, and you make 50K, you probably won't get to 150K by the end of the year. It could happen. I've heard stories of people that it has happened for. I've never experienced this, unfortunately, so I can't say for sure that it happens, but I imagine it does. But let's just assume that you're more average, and that's not a bad thing. Let's just say, results it's not gonna come easy for you. You're not gonna get lucky. You have to really work super hard to get this 150K. By the end of the year, if you don't hit 150K, that's fine. But what you want to be trying to do is you want to go to the end of the year and say to yourself, I didn't get 150K, but I got to 60K, but I got to 70K, but I got to 55K. Does that make sense? Like, it's not about the actual goal itself in a lot of situations. It's about just making progress towards the goal. if you set a fitness goal and you say, I want to be 8% body fat by December 31st, 2024, January 1st, you're 40% body fat. You might not get to 8% body fat by the end of the year, especially if this is like your first time working out, like ever, like first year ever working out and like trying to take it seriously. You might not get to 8% body fat. You probably won't. But you might go from 30 to 20, which is still good progress. You might go from 30 to like 10%, which is fantastic progress. You might go from being like super overweight and obese to going from like 30% body fat, super overweight, never going to the gym in your entire life, to maybe getting to like 20%, but you also see some muscles under the body fat. So your physique looks better and you feel better about yourself. Does that make sense? It's about the progression, not about the destination itself. The goal is the destination. Focus on the progression. So that's what I want to leave you with. Hopefully this video made sense to you. Hopefully you haven't like drowned this out. Hopefully you actually follow the steps that I'm sharing with you in this video. And by the way, really fast, I do want to share this. I plan on doing more of these like live group calls. I know that for a lot of these calls, there's not going to be a lot of people on there, which is why I want to do them, because kind of a shameless plug, I do offer coaching. I offer group coaching and I offer one-on-one coaching. The group coaching is free, like this. This is a group coaching session. The one-on-one coaching is $97 per month, or $997 if you want to pay upfront for the entire year. And I 1000% understand that that is expensive for a lot of people. It's that price for a reason, but I understand that for most people, it's outside of their budget. That's fine. If you can't afford it, this is not me shaming you, by the way, when I say this. If you can't afford it, or if you don't think it's worth the money for you, that's fine. But what I do want to do is I still want people to get the value of the coaching, which is why I do these group coaching sessions. And the beauty of these group coaching sessions is that a lot of people don't join them. And I know a lot of people aren't going to join them, which is why I do them, because it's essentially a free one-on-one coaching session, or a free semi one-on-one coaching session for free without you paying the money. So if you know people, if you're watching this as a replay, or if you're on here right now, if you know people that might find value in this and they want to achieve their goals, they want to make some progress in their lives, but they don't want to pay the $97, either because they just don't want to spend it, they don't see the value in it, or just because they can't afford it, all options are fine. Those are all fine reasons. Please share this at the very least, just so more people can benefit from the information I'm sharing with them, from the steps I'm giving to them, from hopefully at least a little bit of motivation, and hopefully some of the stories I'm sharing. Please share this. And if you are interested yourself, if you're watching this, in the one-on-one coaching, there should be, if you're watching this, you're probably watching this either on YouTube maybe, or Instagram, or through my newsletter. There's going to be a link somewhere. Probably I'm going to point down, because I usually always put links below my videos. You'll see a link. And if you click the link, you'll be able to go to the page. If you watch it, I have another video. It's called my 3P method, my 3-step formula to making sure that every day is successful. I use this strategy every single day. It's what gives me, I call it infinite momentum, because every single day I'm motivated to actually get more work done. I use this method to do exactly that. I think it's fantastic. You can watch that method too, and you don't even need to pay for the coaching. If you just follow the steps, that's plenty. But if you click the link, you'll be able to check out the video, grab the coaching. The first month is free. I give everyone a free trial for the first month, just so I can show you exactly what I'm offering you. And if you don't think it's a good fit, you can always not pay. You can take the coaching and then cancel the subscription before it charges you. I'm totally okay with that. I'm not trying to scam people or give anyone anything less than high quality value. But yeah, please share this. Let me know what you think about these sessions. And if you have any questions, as always, feel free to DM me, email me, reach out to me on some social media platform. Depending on the platform, I might not answer right away, because I get like messages from like every platform, and it does get a bit overwhelming for me. So I try to set aside like a few minutes per day, or like an hour per day, to go through all of them. But shoot me a message. Email is the best. Email is the best place to reach me, and I'll respond to it. But yeah, hope to see you guys in the next video. Hope to see you in one of these live group coaching calls. But yeah, until next time, peace out.